This is Nightline and I am Natasha Busst. The top stories. Pipeline Inferno preliminary report to be made public on Friday. Authorities vow thorough probe. And world leaders plan next steps as Trump's tariffs risk a global trade war. The preliminary report into the gas pipeline leak that devastated homes and displaced thousands in Putra Heights in Selangor will be made public on Friday. According to Selangor Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Amiruddin Syari, a thorough investigation is being conducted to ensure whether there are elements of criminal negligence. At a media briefing in Shah Alam, the Menteri Besar said from Thursday, 2 separate media conferences will be held every 2 days to update the public on the probe. One is to cover the technical aspects of the investigation, while the other, conducted by the police, will focus on any potential negligence or criminality. He said a thorough investigation will be conducted to ensure justice for the victims.
Dan selepas itu kita akan bentangkan dengan terperinci supaya tidak ada siapa yang terlepas daripada bertanggungjawab dan kita dapat memperbaiki pula prosedur serta aturan kita pada masa depan.
He was also asked on the various allegations on the cause of the incident as well as photos and videos on social media.
Pada masa ini kita telah mengambil maklum ke semua klip-klip, video, laporan, maklumat dan kita akan memanggil semua pihak yang terbabit dan hal itu akan dimaklumkan mulai esok oleh Ketua Polis Negeri.
The Menteri Besar said the aim is to identify the cause of the explosion and determine if other factors were involved. Meanwhile, about 630 victims will have to stay another week in 2 temporary relief centres before being transferred to more comfortable locations. The Menteri Besar said he will hold a meeting with the Implementation Coordination Unit of the Prime Minister's Department and Petronas on Friday regarding the matter.
Ada beberapa formula yang kita akan bincangkan dan muktamadkan. InsyaAllah pada hari Ahad ataupun hari Isnin saya akan maklumkan tentang proses tersebut supaya kita dapat melaksanakan sokongan dengan lebih baik di samping menjunjung titah duli yang teramat mulia Raja Muda Selangor supaya kita dapat menyediakan penempatan yang lebih selesa.
The 5,000 ringgit and 2,500 ringgit assistance for the victims, as announced by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, will in the meantime be dispersed from Monday. In another development, 85 affected residents of Taman Putra Harmony in Putra Heights were allowed to return home from Thursday evening after their houses were confirmed safe for occupation. The owners of 115 affected homes were allowed to inspect their houses, accompanied by members of the police, fire and rescue department and the Subang Jaya City Council, MBSJ. They were taken to their houses in MBSJ and police vehicles. 115 of the affected houses were confirmed safe by the Fire and Rescue Department. However, only 85 houses were found to have electricity and water supply and suitable for occupation. 87 other homes were completely destroyed.
Ada macam ceiling semua ada pecah, cermin semua ada pecah. Saya punya besi semua ada what you call melted. My gutter at the back, mine is the back portion affected. The gutter all melted and all that.
Minor impact tu adalah cracking ada, lantai ada meletup lah, maybe because of heat ke kan. Kereta overheat.
Meanwhile, Deputy Home Minister Datuk Seri Syamsul Anwar Nasara revealed that the National Registration Department, NRD, has completed the replacement of 19 My Cards and 43 birth certificates for the victims of the Putra Heights gas pipeline fire. An NRD mobile counter has been set up at the Putra Heights Mosque Temporary Relief Centre starting Thursday to assist victims in obtaining free replacements for their essential documents.
Kita jangkakan dia akan bertambah dari masa ke masa, sebab itu kita harap bas bergerak Mekah kita ni dan juga van ini akan memberi pembantuan dan kita harap masa-masa dapat datang ke sini.
So far, the police have received 108 reports regarding the incident, most of which involve property damage. The Home Ministry, through the police, is also committed to assisting the victims and managing the situation to prevent theft at the incident site. Victims of the Putra Heights blaze, whose homes were affected by the explosion, will be given a one-off 100% rebate on their Tenaga Nasional Berhad TNB electricity bill for a month. The charges will be calculated from the affected customers' March 2025 electricity bill, with the amount credited to their April 2025 bill. TNB said this was a preliminary effort by the company to ease the burden of affected customers. The company said it would also waive any reconnection charges for electricity supply to the affected homes and would not implement any late payment surcharge for the current bill. U.S. stock, dollar and oil nosedived on Thursday, with heavyweight technology stocks suffering big losses as President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on major trade partners ignited fears of an all-out trade war and heightened the risk of a global economic recession. Around the globe, world leaders condemned the decision, pledging countermeasures while hoping the White House will be open to negotiations. U.S.'s closest ally in Southeast Asia, Singapore, expressed disappointment at the 10% U.S. tariffs, despite the wealthy Asian financial hub having a free trade agreement and running a bilateral trade deficit with the U.S. Its Deputy Prime Minister Gan Kim-yong said Singapore could take countermeasures under the free trade agreement in force since 2004, but has chosen not to do so.
We are naturally disappointed that despite our strong and long-standing economic and commercial relationship with the U.S. under the U.S.-Singapore Free Trade Agreement, we are also subject to the same 10% baseline tariffs. Under the FTA, we have recourse. We are able to take countermeasures and also seek dispute resolution. However, we have decided not to do so because imposing retaliatory import duties will just add cost to our imports from the U.S.
Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Europe will take a unified approach and warned that the EU, which will be subject to a 20% tariff, is preparing countermeasures if talks with Washington fail. She said the new tax imports will see uncertainty spiral and cause dire consequences for millions of people around the globe.
President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy. I deeply regret this choice. Let's be clear-eyed about the immense consequences. The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism.
China expressed its opposition to the move and warned that it will take resolute countermeasures against the U.S. China, one of the countries deemed the worst offenders by Trump, was hit with a 34% tariff on goods on top of an existing 20% levy, bringing total duties to at least 54%.
美方打着对等的幌子，对包括中国在内的多国输美产品加征关税，严重违反世贸组织规则，严重损害以规则为基础的多边贸易体制。中方对此坚决反对，将采取必要措施，坚定维护自身正当利益。
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said Trump's decision to impose a raft of tariffs will have an economic impact on Britain. The country was spared the most punitive treatment in Trump's tariff program, awarded the lowest levy rate on imports of 10%, but its economy remains vulnerable to a global slowdown and any escalating trade war.
Clearly, there will be an economic impact from the decisions that the US has taken, both here and globally. But I want to be crystal clear. We are prepared. Nobody wins in a trade war. That is not in our national interest.
Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra, meanwhile, said the government had a strong plan to handle a 36% levy and hopes to negotiate a reduction, saying the government will take steps to mitigate the impact. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, in the meantime, said he was extremely disappointed after the sweeping tariffs announced by Trump. He stated that Japan had requested the US exempt his country from the measures, which will include a 24% tariff on Japanese imports to the US at various levels. Meanwhile, Malaysia, which was hit with a 24% tariff, has no intention of implementing any retaliatory tariffs on American imports. In a statement, the Investment, Trade and Industry Ministry, MITI, said Malaysia will instead utilize the Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, TIFA, to seek reciprocal trade gains. The government will also pursue a technology safeguards agreement with Washington. This is aimed at facilitating high-tech cooperation between both countries in the semiconductor, aerospace and digital economy sectors. To mitigate the impact of the tariff, Malaysia will also expand its export markets by prioritizing high-growth regions and leveraging existing free trade agreements, FTAs. In addition, Malaysia will foster new partnerships within ASEAN and enhance its supply chain resilience. The ministry added that it is in talks with the affected industries while exploring support programs to help businesses adapt. Meanwhile, the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, FMM, said key exports such as gloves, plastics, electrical and electronic goods will be seriously impacted by the 24% reciprocal tariff to be imposed by the US. In a statement, its president, Tan Sri So Tian Lai, said the full 24% rate on these products could sharply reduce exports, put pressure on jobs, and force local producers and US-linked multinationals based in Malaysia to adjust their supply chains. He added that the broader ecosystem, including suppliers, logistics providers, and downstream service sectors, could also be adversely affected by shifts in sourcing and manufacturing decisions resulting from the tariff. In response to the tariff announcement, So urged the government to avoid imposing any additional tax burdens this year, given the increasingly challenging economic conditions. He pointed out that the manufacturing sector is already under severe cost pressures and is the largest contributor to national tax revenue, accounting for 221 billion ringgit or 68.6% of total tax collections. Meanwhile, analysts remain confident that Trump's retaliatory tariffs will not have a major impact on Malaysia's economic growth potential this year. With strong fiscal policies in place, the domestic economy is well positioned to weather any negative effects.
Looking at the latest announcement made by our MITI, it indicated that the ministry is forging for a negotiation and discussion with the US government, and we see this from the positive light because it will preserve the diplomatic ties, and perhaps also both parties would eventually be able to resolve any dispute on any trade-related matters, and perhaps going forward to forge a better alliance, a better cooperations between the two countries.
While sectors heavily reliant on exports may face challenges due to the US tariffs, companies with minimal exposure to the US market, particularly those that generate most of their revenue within Malaysia, are better shielded from external market volatility.
Trade diversification and supply chain realignment will also be key to stabilizing the market and profit direction of companies. With the imposition of the high tariffs, the cost of Malaysian glove will rise. However, they will have a greater price competitiveness, considering alternatives suppliers from Thailand and China, where both these countries have been imposed with higher tariffs compared to what they have imposed on Malaysia. And then, meanwhile, the impact on the pharmaceutical and healthcare sectors are expected to be minimal as well, given their limited exposure to the US market and exemption granted to pharmaceutical products.
Earlier, Trump announced new, kind reciprocal tariffs on more than 180 countries, marking the most extensive tariff package implemented by Washington in decades. He framed the tax hikes as a blow against unfair trade practices, painting a portrait of the U.S. as a country exploited by even its closest allies.
For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. American steel workers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen. We have a lot of them here with us today. They really suffered gravely.
Invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, Trump announced a 10% tariff on all countries, scheduled to take effect on April 5th. He also revealed individualized tariffs for countries with the largest trade deficits with the U.S. Cambodia is the hardest hit with 49%, followed by Vietnam at 46%, Sri Lanka at 44%, Bangladesh at 37%, and China at 34%. Those tariffs will come into effect on April 9th. Trump proclaimed that the move will mark a turning point in U.S. history, signifying an end to the vicious attacks he said the country had weathered. Lorry attendant crushed to death. The details after this breather.
Dengar sini bro, jadi hero bukan setakat swing kiri, swing kanan.
Everybody good?
Do me a favor though.
Can't you just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man?
Pakai suit, lepas tu acakul. Aksi kena gempak, tapi fikir dulu sebelum bertindak. Jangan sampai terjebak.
Don't do anything stupid.
Spider-Man Homecoming, Raya ke-6 10 malam. Indahkan memori Syawal di TV3 Blockbuster dan stream juga melalui tonton.
Haji, awaklah calon isteri saya.
Saya rasa awak cepat-cepatlah cari jodoh.
Awak tak sabar sangat nak tengok saya dengan perempuan lain.
Kita tak sesuai. Nazim.
Apa? Gila-gila ni suami awak, tahu tak?
Esok-esok pun dia nak cerai kan?
Calon isteri buat suami mulai 8 April, Isnin hingga Jumaat 7 malam. Terbaru di Akasia TV3.
Di setiap lebaran Syawal, tersimpan kisah yang membangkitkan rasa, merentasi tradisi, membisikkan makna, menyulam memori yang abadi.
Sebagai seorang anak seni, saya rasa ini lumrah. Kita semua tak sempurna. Apa-apa yang kita buat pun dengan nawaitu kita. Niat baik, dibalas baik.
Kalau dalam wrestling nak berjaya memang kena pergi ke US. Selepas 9 tahun baru dapat jejak ke sana. Satu benda yang Diana tak pernah dibayangkan.
Nona di TV3 dan stream juga melalui tonton.
Pasport? Check. Suit Spider-Man? Tak kot. Kono nak healing, feeling dengan MJ. Sekali.
Put some clothes on. Go for a ride.
Nick Fury dan Roger? No escape, bro.
Fire all the drones now!
Spider-Man Far From Home, Raya ke-7 10 malam. Indahkan memori Syawal di TV3 Blockbuster dan stream juga melalui tonton.
We're back with more news from the local front. A lorry attendant was killed after being crushed inside his vehicle's cabin following a collision with a sports utility vehicle SUV on the Pan-Borneo Highway along the Miri Bintulu stretch in Sarawak on Thursday. 3 other individuals were also injured in the incident, which occurred near the Ladang Tiga palm oil plantation at 8 a.m. A spokesman for the State Fire and Rescue Department said firefighters were dispatched to the scene after receiving an emergency call at 8:23 a.m. Initial reports stated that the container lorry had hit the SUV before crashing into the road divider and landing on its side, causing its cabin to be crushed. Rescuers had to call for a crane to lift the lorry cabin to extricate the trapped victim, but he was later confirmed dead. The deceased was identified as 36-year-old Daryl Suggin. The lorry driver and the 2 occupants of the SUV who sustained injuries were rescued by passers-by and taken to Miri Hospital. A cook and an unemployed man were charged in the Batu Pahat Magistrates Court on Thursday with trafficking 2 individuals to Myanmar. Wong Jun Wei and Jasper Yap N.Y., aged 26 and 20 respectively, however, pleaded not guilty when the charge was read to them before Magistrate Arun Novaldas. The duo were jointly charged with trafficking a 26-year-old man and a 34-year-old woman, both Malaysians, for the purpose of labor exploitation through deception. The offence was allegedly committed between December 15, 2024 and February 14 this year in Yate Shwekoko, Myanmar. If convicted, the accused face a maximum prison sentence of 20 years and a fine. The court did not grant bail and set April 7th for case mention. On March 17th, it was reported that police arrested one of the 25 Malaysians who were rescued from becoming victims of a job scam syndicate in Myanmar. Investigations revealed that he is believed to have played a role in recruiting locals for the syndicate. The Special Malaysia Disaster Assistance and Rescue Team, SMART, successfully extricated 8 earthquake victims in Myanmar's Sagaing district as the search for survivors continued on Thursday. The National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, said the team is now focusing on searching a school where victims are still believed to be trapped. The recovered bodies comprised 3 men, 3 women and a child, while a man in his 40s was found alive and successfully rescued after being trapped for 72 hours beneath the collapsed debris. All 50 officers and personnel on duty in Sagaing are in good condition, although some displayed minimal hot weather symptoms such as hoarseness. The team arrived at Naypyidaw International Airport last Sunday after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck Myanmar and shook neighboring Thailand. Mass displacement as Rafah seized by the Zionist regime. The details when Nightline returns.
Ya sayang. Mak, mana on the way ni? Atas Skyway. Lain solo je. Baru style lo. Raya, URC ni bro. Auto machine. Bunga api tak cukup letupan. Relax mak. Tahun ni bakal menantu join sekali. Satu kampung standby depan TV. Indahkan memori Syawal di TV3 Blockbuster dan stream juga melalui tonton.
Kotor dan jijik, premis sembelih ayam langgar syarat.
Dia punya dokumen pemborong, untuk borong ayam kena ada lesen borong.
Pekerja asing ambil alih tugas penyembelih bertauliah.
Patutnya kena ada kat sini lah. Tengok pas cakap bom, pukul 1 semalam. Tapi ayam dah sembelih.
Saksikan 999 Selasa jam 9 malam di TV3 dan stream sekarang melalui tonton.
On to the foreign front. Hundreds of thousands of fleeing Gazans sought shelter on Thursday in one of the biggest mass displacements of the war as Israeli forces advanced into the ruins of the city of Rafah, part of a newly announced security zone they intend to seize.
A day after announcing plans to capture large swathes of the enclave, Zionist forces pushed into the city on Gaza's southern edge, which had served as a last refuge for people fleeing other areas for much of the war. The Zionist regime also continued its attacks across Gaza, with the health ministry reporting at least 97 deaths in the past 24 hours, including 20 from an airstrike in Shajaya at dawn. Another 26 Palestinians were killed in Zionist attacks on Khan Yunis, while an assault on an UNRWA clinic sheltering displaced families in Jabalia refugee camp killed 22 Palestinians, including women and children. In the meantime, Hungary's government announced on Thursday that it was withdrawing from the International Criminal Court shortly after Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in the country for a state visit. Hungary, one of the founding members of the ICC, will be the first European Union nation to pull out of the court. Right-wing Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban invited Netanyahu, who is sought under an ICC arrest warrant, for a state visit after the warrant against him was issued last November. Hungarian authorities should technically arrest Netanyahu and hand him over to the court in The Hague, but the country has chosen not to enforce the warrant. Over in Southeast Asia, Myanmar's junta chief Min Aung Hlaing is in Thailand for a regional summit as his country reels from an earthquake that killed thousands and left cities in ruins. Aung Hlaing arrived in Bangkok on Thursday on the eve of a summit that will gather leaders from the 7 countries bordering the Bay of Bengal, including Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. His attendance will be unusual as sanctioned leaders are typically barred from these events. Thailand, where the earthquake was felt and killed 21 people, has proposed that the leaders issue a joint statement on the disaster. So far, at least 3,085 people have been killed in Myanmar's earthquake, with many affected areas still unreachable by authorities. At least 1 person was killed and dozens injured on Wednesday amid violent storms and tornadoes that struck parts of southern and Midwest U.S. The only death was reported in Missouri, while 8 were injured across Kentucky and Arkansas. Dozens of warnings were also issued in parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Mississippi as violent storms aggressively hit on Wednesday evening. Forecasters warned of potential deadly flash flooding to the south and Midwest as severe thunderstorms blowing eastward become supercharged, expected to continue into Saturday. The storms also destroyed homes and businesses, bringing down power lines and trees. We're back with sports. Squash, the 2025 Manchester Open. National player Aifa Azman outplayed compatriot Yashmita Jadish Kumar in the first round on Wednesday.
World number 39 Aifa needed just 18 minutes to oust world number 81 Yashmita 11-2, 11-8, 11-1. Up next, Aifa will meet England's top seed and world number 7 Georgia Kennedy for a place in the third round. Aifa, who has only met Kennedy once, lost in straight games in the first round of the Paris Squash Open last year. In the men's category, Sanjay Jiva defeated England's Bailey Malik 11-5, 11-8, 11-6 in the opening round. The world number 59 will play world number 36 Jonah Bryant of England in the next round. On to tennis, the 2025 Charleston Open. Russian-born Daria Kasatkina won her first match representing Australia in the second round on Wednesday. Fifth seed Kasatkina, who won her first tour-level title at the WTA 500 event in 2017, needed just 61 minutes to dispatch home hopeful Lauren Davis 6-1, 6-1 and book a third-round match against another American, Sophia Kenin. Top seed Jessica Pegula also advanced into the third round, holding off a second-set comeback attempt from Belarus's Irina Shimanovic. The 2024 US Open finalist held firm to prevail 6-love, 6-3, setting up a third-round tie against Australia's Ayla Tomljanovic. Joining them was number 4 seed Emma Navarro, who reached the last 16 by winning against Hailey Baptiste 6-4, 6-3. The world number 11 will face the winner of the match between number 15 seed Ashlyn Kruger and Katie Volinets next.
That concludes Nightline this time around. Before we leave, let's take a look as chocolatiers in Naples celebrate the city's 2,500th anniversary with a massive chocolate Easter egg. With that, I'm Natasha. Thank you for watching and stay safe.